Hello, folks. Hello. You better than that. Hello, folks. Hello. Hey, how you doing? Our world has changed radically in the last 3 years. From those early rumours from far-flung places to the reality of life's changed forever by something so small we couldn't even see it. We now live and work in a world very different to that of 2019. Business has adapted and evolved, things have changed, and that change has impacted us, the people and the talent that is the lifeblood of any data-centred organisation. Today we're going to look back at what we have learned, what worked and perhaps what didn't, but more importantly, thanks to our panel of experts, we're going to try and take a bit of a glimpse into the future, to have a think and a chat about what might be lying around the corner of the next few years for talent within the data industry. So firstly, our expert panel. From my far right, a short introduction, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Rob. Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth Hollinger, the Director of Insight at Aggreko, which is a sufficiently vague title. But what that means is that I look after all of our data teams for our global business. So that's data engineering, data science, BI reporting, as well as our software engineering capability. And our objective is to become an insight-driven organisation, so really making sure we get best value out of our data, we drive insight from it, and we take action against that, hence the title Director of Insight.
Thanks very much. Donne.
Hi everybody, my name's Donne Burrows. I'm Chief Operating Officer and co-founder at Engine B. My role is really, we're a tech startup, so pretty much everything outside of sales. So everything to do with people, operations, and anything that falls in between. We're focused largely on professional services, audit specifically, and we've built a data platform for data extraction.
Thank you, Donne. Tim.
Hi everyone, my name's Tim. I am currently the head of talent at ClearScore. For those of you who don't know ClearScore, that's the consumer credit marketplace. Before that, I was at Cowan Music, which is a royalties collection platform for music artists. So always been in tech and data heavy platforms. My remit is hiring and talent development, so that's me.
Thanks very much, Tim. And last but not least, Greig.
Thank you, Rob. I'm Greig Cowan, so I'm head of data science at NatWest Group. So for those in Scotland, that would like Royal Bank of Scotland, so a big financial services firm. And my job really is to use the bank's data to keep our customers safe by trying to detect fraud and financial crime, and using that to get that insight to keep themselves and their families on track for what they want to do in their lives.
Thanks very much. So folks, that's the panel. Let's give them a very big warm digit welcome, please. Okay, down to business. So we're here for the next 40 minutes and then it is a pretty hard stop. So in order to give everyone as much opportunity as possible to ask questions and make their points with our panel, I plan to kick things off in each section with a few scene-setting questions, but here's where you all come in. I'll open things up to the floor as soon as possible. So please, if you've got a follow-up question, a point you'd like to raise, a challenge, please challenge them, or just an observation, stick your hand in the air and we'll try to come to you. Digit folks, we've got a mic, yeah? 2 mics in the room, so please let's make this interactive. Let's make this the best, most chilled, interactive panel session that Digit has ever seen. Yes?
Yeah.
Thanks very much, let's kick it off. Okay, post-COVID reality, Mr. Greig Cowan. From a talent perspective, what has been the single biggest impact, either positive or negative, that you have noticed from, firstly, either your own individual perspective or your organisational perspective due to the COVID years? What's changed, mate?
So I think for me, the biggest thing is it works, as in like working from home, remote teams. That was a big experiment that was kind of forced upon us, and we were really nervous in my area, like what's going to happen? How do you onboard new staff? How do you make sure that there's a culture that you can maintain in that remote world? But for the most part, it's really worked really well, and many teams, just continue to work at the same level, if not even a higher level of productivity than before. So that's for me the big takeaway.
Do we mention the T word right now? Is it trust? Is that the biggest changes that we've realised we can trust each other?
I think so, absolutely. And I think just giving people the tools they need to do their work, giving them the direction they need, but also then the space to sort of innovate themselves, to bring the best themselves to work, to then deliver what they have to do.
We'll come back to that idea of the best. Tim, would you like to follow up something you've
Yeah, it has worked, but it's been challenging. I'm from the London office and came up to the Edinburgh office today, and I met someone I didn't know, and I thought, Steve. I said, "Oh, how long have you been here, Steve?" He said, 3.5 years. I was like, oh, how long have you been here, Tim? 2.5 years. I was like, okay. And I thought he'd been like just joined because I hadn't met him. And so that's the difference. You know, we're in organisations now where I think the biggest challenge is that team cohesion. You know, that kind of meeting that person that's not within your immediate sphere of influence. And that means, from our organisational perspective, really working hard on that togetherness. Not forcing it, but hoping that it can develop organically. And we're still on that journey. So it has worked, but it's also got its challenges.
Another T word there, togetherness. Donne.
Do I need to think of a T word?
And you need to think of
So I'll take notes of the T words.
I didn't realise it was a quiz. I mean, I think it's interesting for us because we founded in August 2019, so we're effectively born out of COVID. And the day I was about to sign an office rental in London for a big 17, 18 person office, my co-founder started coughing and he said, I'm not going to come and see you. And I was like, oh God, I might just hold off because I'd come to London. He said, I won't come into the office today. So we stopped, and actually thank God we stopped. He didn't sign that office lease. But we've grown from 2 of us and a couple of contractors to 42 people during that time. So everything we've done has been virtual, everything's been through Teams. We've built a culture, we've grown. So actually for us, I actually think we probably wouldn't have grown as quickly and as globally as we have done without the pandemic, because it became the norm that you didn't have to be together. I actually think it's becoming more challenging now, because I think people are starting to burn out. I think we are totally virtually based, and people now want connection. So we're trying to find opportunities for people to be together, whether it's for meetings or social stuff. But I think that now that early enthusiasm is becoming a little bit less.
So not a T word, but C word, connection. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think probably echo a lot of what people have said, but for me there are definitely positives and negatives in what we've experienced. I think some of the really strong positive is just the flexibility that it's given people. And that includes working families too, that people no longer have to worry about the kids drop off and pick up and travel in and all of those difficult things that depending on life stage people might have to deal with. And I think that's been really beneficial for people not to have those kind of worries and to have the flexibility around how they work. So I've really noticed a big impact on that, and particularly for working families. I think on the flip side, where I've noticed a bit of a negative impact is particularly for any of our new starts in the team. And where it hits really hard is for our new graduates and apprentices, because they join our organisation and many of them are still living at home with their parents. They're working in their bedroom. They don't have a nice office that they've set up in their garden like many of us have, with a nice shed and nice optics and things. But they're working in their bedroom in an environment, not seeing anyone, and nobody to turn to the side and say, how do I put a holiday on the system? What do I do? Who do I go and ask about that? And that for me is where I think hybrid working has absolutely got it right, where we have the flexibility still to be able to meet all of the other demands that we have in our lives, to have the time just to get the head down at home, to code and to do the things you need to do. But then we're still almost honouring our commitment to our wider team and to helping them to grow, progress and to support. And I think that's a very difficult thing to do entirely virtually.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I said I would open it up early. Any other observations? What we've seen over the last couple of years, we've spoken about some of the positives, some of the negatives. Anybody get anything different they've noticed from an organisational or individual perspective, looking back to 2019 and where we are now? Any other points we'd like to make? Yeah?
Not me personally.
Just wait for the mic. No, hear you.
Thank you.
Not me personally, but my question would be, have you noticed an increase in productivity due to flexibility in working patterns?
Let's start from the other end now. Elizabeth?
Honestly, no. Genuinely, we haven't seen any impact, and it's actually something I tried to measure. A lot of our teams work in agile sprints, so we can actually measure how many story points, what's the throughput, what are people getting through. And I think people's perception was that they had more time to be able to get on with tasks because they weren't being interrupted by somebody asking them how they put a holiday on the system at the side, and they weren't getting those kind of small distractions. But we actually didn't see that translate into anything that you could actually measure from that perspective. So I don't know if it's people always worked really hard and continued to work really hard and we always just got there, but we didn't see any increase in productivity.
Yeah, I don't think we have either. I think very similarly, we from a tech perspective, it's all measured in story points. I think we have increased productivity, but we've increased the size of the team. That's been the driver. I think people maybe worked, particularly at the start of the pandemic, longer hours than they had to. I think that's definitely tapered off now. I mean, sometimes I wonder how much they are working, but that's another story. As I stalk people on Teams, how long they've been away. But no, I mean, I think it has definitely evened out. And I think people have just, they've started to realise this is life. So they've taken their, not foot off the gas, but just like, I don't need to race to get there.
I think we learned that there's no one dominant way of working. And I think the comment you made about we wonder how much people are working is a real prevalent point, because it says much more about, I think, us as managers or individuals or leaders to sort of, and in our organisation we've worked hard to sort of put the mechanisms in place where we can have really clear expectations. And actually, the biggest challenge for us as a growing organisation is installing some manager effectiveness training. So having the right people in leadership positions, having the right people supporting individuals to be their most productive selves, and not conforming to a particular standard that just the way the CEO always used to do it. And that's been really interesting, because it's had a really, I would probably talk about the inclusion agenda later, but just being able to recognise that everyone's different, productivity is defined by different ways, and it's all about the outcomes. It's not about how you do it, it's about what you've done.
Greg.
Go ahead.
Just on that aspect of productivity and monitoring what staff are doing, I actually did a career change through the pandemic, which was great fun. I went from engineering, where we would have team meetings once a week, where the project lead could assess what was being done, to software development, where we had stand-ups every morning.
Yeah.
So actually, I realised that the management team that I was working in had a far, far better handle on what I was doing and what we were doing as a team, just by having a 15-minute stand-up every morning. And they could quickly assess, how fast we were getting through things. So I thought, even though we were working remotely and virtually, they had a really good handle on the productivity of the team.
Good.
And it's also that connection point as well. It's the morning stand-ups are a good way of everybody just understanding what everyone else is doing, but just knowing that there's other people in the team.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we've spoken broadly. Oh, another one.
Well, I've done it.
Leave Robbie.
Far first and then front. Yeah.
You can probably hear me.
No, it's going behind you.
Let's go back.
Just hold.
So when it comes to employee happiness, did you notice, would you be able to measure this? Do you think employees working from home are happier, or employees working from the office are happier, or we cannot really measure this at all?
I'll jump in on that. So one of the things from a talent development point of view is engagement, and I'm sure a lot of organisations have these pulse surveys and engagement surveys that allow you as an individual to indicate how you're feeling and give feedback. And I think they can sometimes be quite annoying, because they seem to come around every single week, but they don't. They come around sort of every quarter. But it's a real golden opportunity to sort of share your views on how you're feeling and the business adjusting as a result of that. So I think if people embrace those, then we'll start to get a sense of what's more effective, the home working or the in the office, and keeping it flexible for people.
I think that's the key, isn't it? Because it's different for different people. As you said, like young people that are working from home in their parents' house or tucked away in their bedroom, it's a very different scenario to somebody who's got a nice office and actually busy working at home. I know in my team, a lot of my team are in different countries anyway, so we don't necessarily have that option, but even the people in the UK, when I've tried to encourage them to get together, the techs, they're all quite happy beavering away doing their own thing, because that's the style that they're used to. So I think you've got to adapt, haven't you, and be flexible to what people want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. These pulse surveys are really useful to measure that engagement. It is tough. We do a lot of work in our area to really happy to embrace that flexibility, but we do try and get people together every quarter just to get that human connection and ensure that we have, maintain the culture. We've got a lot of new people coming into the team, and we want to get together to have, look backs, recognition on what's happened, look forward to see what's coming next, and really plan our strategy. And I think coming together to have that face-to-face contact is really useful, and we again get good feedback that those are while people love to, beaver away in their home office, they do enjoy those times once a quarter just to get that human connection and have a coffee together.
Do you have the mic? Could you pass the mic? Yes, go. Here we go.
Just cover sort of three issues that we've experienced. The first one's dogs. If you ask staff in the office now, they're all in love with their dogs. You've got to make accommodation for that. The second one is students coming in. As we take a lot of not graduates, but students in and do placement training for them. And it can be,
done you.
Yeah, it can be a real trying experience, depending on who you bring in. Some are self-motivated and just take to it like a fish out of water. Other ones need a lot of handheld support, and they're just not advancing as fast as they should be. Yeah. And we're also noticing, because of the pandemic period, the communication skills of the students isn't as good as it maybe would have been 3 years ago. Their written skills and their verbal communication isn't as good because they've just not been practicing as much as they would have done had they been in a college environment. So it's something to take into account.
Aye, absolutely. And I just from my own personal perspective, I've got a son who's in that space, and thankfully spent some time with Elizabeth over the summer, and it's completely changed his outlook. He sat and he worked for 6 years at high school to get to university, and when he got into university he couldn't go, and he sat in his room on his own for 2 years, and it really did change him as a human being, and I think we've got to make a wee bit of an account for that. I found it hard enough. I'm 50 something, and I found the last 2 years tough. Imagine what that must have been like if you're an 18, 19-year-old young man or woman. That's a tough experience to go through. So I think we should cut the youngins some slack, and fair play to you for supporting. That's a cracking thing.
Yeah. I think just one comment on comm skills and all those other things. I think the thing that we sometimes forget about is, yes, you can sit and be kind of peer coding beside somebody and you're learning as a kind of apprentice or a grad or an intern or something like that. But it's all the other things you learn by osmosis, by being in meetings, observing body language, seeing how people deal with a difficult situation. Like, it's all of those other things, the informal conversations at the coffee machine or the water cooler, that if you don't have any human kind of connection or interaction at all in person, that you just lose all of that. And so I do think, and we do talk about it within our team, and we work hybrid, that we do have a responsibility for our more junior members of staff to help them as we were helped when we started. And I just think that's something that, if you have the opportunity, conscious Donne, you're in a slightly different position because you don't have a central office, but when we do, that's why we do encourage people to be in the office a day or two a week, just to help, not all the time, but just to kind of help build those relationships and that experience.
Oh, more questions? Pass the mic, please.
It's around sort of remote culture and kind of maintaining that and how you kind of develop that. What we saw in a number of our organisations was in 2020, everyone just sat tight. No one wanted to leave, put their head above the parapet, because no one knew what was going on with jobs and security and so on. 2021, when remote working and kind of tech services being in huge demand compared to sort of high street and so on, we saw massive attrition. We were seeing our staff being targeted and poached, and 20, 30, 40% pay increases across the board. So we had massive salary inflation. Now we're seeing 2022 kind of staff going back into the market for not quite as much money as they used to and so on. So we've got quite a big turnover in our workforce, some of whom, to your point, Tim, haven't been into the office before, you haven't crossed paths with them. We've got graduates coming in, to Elizabeth's point, where they need to be kind of brought on, but a lot of them are working remotely, a lot of them are working on a hybrid basis. We don't really see them in the office. And trying to create a remote culture in that sense, because culture is everything in organisations for retention and motivation and bringing people through. I think everyone's sick of Zoom drinks meetings and Teams quizzes. So I suppose my question really is on remote culture as a remote first organisation. How do you achieve that when you've got people dispersed all over the place?
I mean, I think we've had to work really hard at it, and at first, in the heady days at the start of COVID, when we were a tiny team, we would have what we called morning prayers every day. So we were all in for a quick catch-up, a bit like a stand-up, but just everybody would check in. And then the team was growing and growing, and then you got to this point where you couldn't see all the squares, and I was like, this is not really that helpful anymore because I can't see everybody. We went through the same as everybody, trying to do that and trying to keep it, the quizzes and the drinks on a Friday afternoon, etc. I think now the culture, we talk quite openly, my co-founder and I, about our purpose and our culture. It's really important to us, and when we interview people, we talk quite passionately about why we do what we do, and make sure that everybody's sort of not exact replicas of us, but they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, and that sort of feeds through in everything that we do and the decisions that we make. So I hope it comes from the top, but actually, it has to come from the bottom as well. So within smaller teams, so I know, for example, within our tech team, that they get together very regularly. So we do have a hub of people up here in Glasgow. We do have a space in London, so we try to get people together as much as we can. And it's just trying to make sure that communication, it's tricky because I've got people in Ukraine, I've got people in India, Bulgaria, Greece, and the UK. So you're trying to constantly juggle. And you've got cultural aspects there as well. I mean, this morning everybody was asking where all the devs have gone in India, and then it was like, the cricket semi-final. So I think they're probably all watching the cricket, so we're like, all right, okay. So there was a bit of a gap this morning, and then they've come back online. So you've got
disappointed.
I don't even know the score, actually.
We won.
All right, okay. So you've got a bit of that. So I don't think there's any easy answer. I think you just constantly have to work at it, and you have to remember that everybody is a person and not an employee. And for me, that's the most important thing. And understand what motivates and what drives individuals rather than thinking at a team level.
Yeah. Did we have any more questions? Because I'm conscious of time here. Because I'm going to jump. Yeah. More questions. Well, right, okay. We'll take one or two more, and then I'm going to jump on to the next section because we're kind of running out of time. This is great.
I was going to ask a really quick point, actually. In regards to this gentleman's point, I'm a direct second year software engineering student. Bit of a plug. I did a first year college last year during the pandemic, being taught online SUT. You didn't network, you couldn't really ask questions in person, but I managed. But what I found now is that I'm bringing in that idea of, I can do my coursework outside of university timetable now. I got that, that facility to do that. I got that passion to do that. So in a way, that sort of online learning experience from college has actually taught me that I can be flexible in my studies outside of my university timetable.
No, good point. Right, I'm going to jump on to the next section, which is boldly titled Globalisation, Purpose and Reward. Greg, we spoke about culture, community and collaboration.
Yes.
Much has been discussed about bringing your whole self to work, but ensuring that the workplace is somewhere that people want to belong to and not just work within is crucial in allowing this to happen. What can data leaders and organisations do to make this a reality?
Tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth?
It's
a bit of a follow-on to the previous conversation in a way. I think for us, I think you said culture is everything. Absolutely. We spend a lot of time trying to build our community of data, in my case, data professionals, and we're always having, teaching, community calls. We've got a conference in 2 weeks' time we've organised for like 300 people to come within the bank to come and network and talk to each other, because again, it's always remote. No one really knows different silos of the bank, so it's trying to pull everyone together to understand where those connections can be made and where that collaboration can come from. I think a big thing for us is we really embrace learning, and we really focus on providing the tools and the time for people to learn when they're at work, so that they can, people are kind of our best resource in the organisation. So we really want to focus on providing them with we've got a data academy where they can do courses to learn new skills. They can do leadership courses, and as managers, we're really encouraging people to take the time to do that, to develop themselves, and we don't just see them as trying to turn the handle and crank out some piece of work, but it's all about how they grow with us, and while also delivering for the organisation.
And it's to the point that was made earlier on about how the world's changed over the last couple of years. Everybody's sitting tight, then everybody's 40% pay rises and being poached right, left and centre. As a data leader, you're trying to create a place that people, no matter what happens externally, they want to belong to that.
Absolutely, and we try to make it's not just about the money, right? We really want people to enjoy. We talk about being a great place to work, and how do you ensure
it's
that
the whole employee value proposition rather than just the pounds and pence.
Exactly.
And Tim, from your perspective, is that something you've put quite a bit of focus on, this broader employee value proposition?
Absolutely. I think everything starts with purpose, and if you believe in the business that you're working for, then the cultural aspects, the interaction with others comes a bit more naturally, because you're passionate and motivated to to make an impact to deliver that vision or to deliver that to that purpose. But we have had to work harder on fairness, and I define fairness through some sort of real clear structures so that people could see a pathway, a career pathway. So there wasn't any feeling that if I'm in the office and I'm networking, then I'm going to advance quicker than if I am effective remotely. So I talked about manager effectiveness earlier, so I won't cover that. But what we did do just at the early 2021 is introduce transparent pay structures. So we're able to really give both individual contributors and those on manager tracks real clear indications of where their career might go from a salary perspective, and then also from a competency perspective. So people had defined career pathways. And it really helped as well in the globalisation point about having a wide talent pool to choose from, but it being competitive for good talent. I think it always will be, even if we hit recession. It will always be competitive for good talent. So those pay structures have really opened up the conversation around personal development and competency, so that we were able to say no to people who were just stronger negotiators. And that really helped as well with our diversity of hiring as well, because it wasn't just the folk that were negotiating harder. It was, have they been assessed against level? This is the pay, and we had 3 structures, which is developing, competent, and mastery, and we're able to slot them into one of those 3 within a structure. That's the pay they get. End of conversation. We saw our offer acceptance rate decline, and I had about 2 to 3 months of slight concern whether that would be the right approach, but it bounced back up. And the feedback we got when people had joined was that they can now see that pathway for them, and feel that fairness has been achieved. So far so good on that.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, can I come back to the point about inclusion, though, rather than kind of the overall culture?
You do what you like.
Okay, thanks. No, but I think inclusion is really important, because people talk an awful lot about diversity and how do you hire diverse people that come from all backgrounds, walks of life, etc. I think it's one thing recruiting them, but it's another thing getting them to stay. And that's about how you make the environment that they work in inclusive. I think it comes back to something that Donne said earlier about, they're not your employees, they're people. And what will make one person happy is different to what will make the other person happy. How one person wants to respond in a meeting is different to how another person will want to respond in a meeting. And I think the more that we get to know and understand people as individuals and who they are, that helps us to be better and more inclusive leaders. And there's some kind of small and really practical things I think we can do in that. So within our team, we kind of run relatively frequently, maybe every year, a Myers-Briggs type test, so everybody understands how the other person thinks. So if this person is more of a talker and this one's more of a thinker, don't go and ask them something on the spot, because they'll be uncomfortable and they won't want that, but send them an email, let them think about it, and then come back to you and respond. So it's thinking about things like that. With work socials, don't have them all after work when people might have young children. Have some lunchtime socials so that then people can always go there and they don't need to worry about babysitting. Don't have all your socials in the pub. Maybe not everybody drinks. Can you do something that's different? So it's all these really small but really impactful things that matter to people as individuals. And I think if we just start to kind of open up a little bit and think about those, that's the thing that really creates an inclusive culture.
Thank you. Dawn, anything to add?
I mean, I'm sitting here a little bit in awe. So I'm in a really small organisation and a small team. My background is obviously large organisations, and you're trying to take some of what you know from your previous life but adapt it for a much smaller environment. So we're at the stage where, we do, I mean, culture and purpose is super important to us. We do try to think about doing different types of events, but we need to think, and I think this transparent pay structures is actually, I might pick up with you separately on that, because it sounds like a really clever way of thinking about career paths, because when you've got a team of, 10 people in this part of Dev, you've got another 3 here, it's quite tricky to think about, career paths and how do you create that. So we're evolving, I would say.
Yeah, well, we found that one of our biggest challenges with that is then we had to adjust the people that had been with us for 2, 3, 4 years. And some of those adjustment conversations didn't go particularly as the individual thought they should. Oh, well, I've been here for 4 years, therefore I must get paid more than the person who arrived a month ago. And it was just having those conversations around competence and setting those standards was quite important. I think the other thing for us was just making sure that from an inclusion point of view, that allowed us to really be confident to go out to market and say we are an organisation that treats people fairly, regardless of their level, regardless of their influence, and so that certainly helped.
Hold that thought. But first of all, I'm going to ask, are there any questions from the audience on the themes of globalisation, purpose and reward? Anybody got any questions they would like to put to the panel at this stage? No? Grand. Crack on. Tim, much has been made of the increased globalisation of the data talent stream over recent years. We can see this as an opportunity, a threat, or somewhere in between. What can businesses do to capitalise on those new market conditions?
Well, certainly having access to a much broader talent pool has been brilliant for my hiring team. I mean, but we're a hybrid model, so the conversations have to start really up front to say, well, what do you want as an individual? If someone wants 100% remote, well, then we're not the organisation for them. And for those people that have lived through the experience of a new working pattern, we've actually had to have some difficult conversations internally to say, are we the right culture for you now? Because people were used to 100% remote during lockdown, and then aren't that enthusiastic to come into. I mean, we actually mandate a certain percentage of time requested for people to come in. So there's a bit of a goal-setting opportunity to say we would like you to be in this amount of time. If people don't like that, we've had to have the conversation. Say, well, that's how we want to build our culture, and that was from a senior down, but also from bottom-up feedback that we got. And those individuals tried to influence the change, and they haven't been able to influence change, and some of them moved on. And that's fine. You know, I think one of the things that we recognise in a startup situation or scale-up situation is that organisations evolve and change, and you might get to a point where what you joined for is not what you're experiencing, and that is the time to have a career transition conversation. And embracing that, I think, is a new area for us, because it's quite I mean, from a recruitment perspective, I always say to people, don't think about your next job, think about the job after that. But the organisations who are employing that person want to get full value from that person. So having that career transition conversation is quite difficult for an organisation to mandate, but we're doing it, and we're getting better engagement as a result of it.
Thank you. Greg, thoughts on that, the globalisation theme? Opportunity, threat, somewhere in
between?
between?
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity. My previous career was very much about just going global and trying to get the best talent from across the world, and I think that's hugely beneficial from a cultural point of view, because you get all these different backgrounds, you get exciting, connections between people from different parts of the world, and that can spark off new ideas and new innovation that you might otherwise not have got. I think in my own organisation right now, that trying to recreate that is actually quite challenging in a kind of heavily regulated financial services organisation. So we've got some internal, work to do there to make sure we can really go global to get the talent that we need beyond our kind of the different hubs we have around the organisation. Yeah, I would really embrace that globalisation.
I'm going to skip on to almost the final section now, diversity and inclusion, and to Elizabeth specifically. From a perspective of an employee who has undergone a hugely significant life event in the last couple of years, how are we doing as a sector with our approach to diversity and inclusion?
Thanks, Rob. And that hugely exciting event is that I returned from maternity leave this year, so I had my first baby, a COVID baby, at the end of 2020. Yes, I mean, I touched a little bit on inclusion before, but in terms of diversity, if I reflect back on the career I've had in data, which I used to always say to you, Rob, I've worked for the last 10 years in it. Sadly, it's a lot more than 10, nearly 20 now, I think, years in data. I do think we've made improvements and strides in the diversity that we're seeing across the piece. And I think generally, the data sector tends to be more diverse than the broader technology sector. I think that's been my experience of working within it. I think what we should be thinking about, though, in terms of diversity is broader than what is typically banded about. So we know that we measure gender-based diversity. We do the gender pay gap every year, and we look at what's the proportion of females in the organisation, how do they how do they kind of start to progress through the organisation, are we giving equal opportunity? And that's really valid, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. But I think for me, diversity is just much broader than that. And I read a book a couple of years ago by Matthew Said called Rebel Ideas, which I highly recommend if you haven't read it. Matthew Said's books, all of them are great. But in that he coins a phrase called cognitive diversity. And what he's really talking about is that actually when you bring people together, kind of to Greg's point on globalisation and what you're kind of trying to tap into there, who all think differently, that's when you really have strength in the ideas that you're generating and the conclusions that you're coming to. Now, people might think differently because they're a man or they're a woman, or they might think differently because they were born in the UK or they weren't, or they might think differently because they were born in more wealthy circumstances or less wealthy circumstances, and it actually doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're bringing people together who are all from all different walks of life, and sometimes that's really obvious where the difference might come from, but sometimes it's not. So we've tried to be really, really open-minded within Aggreko and how we are creating a diverse team. And we measure things like what's the span of experience in the team. And I think the youngest person in the team just now is 21 and the oldest is 65, intentionally, because we want people who are super experienced, who have kind of been there, done there, bought the t-shirt, plus the fresh thinking ideas to say, but actually have you tried it this way instead? We have people who have gone to university, gone on and got PhDs, and people who have come straight from school as apprentices or worked their way through school, through different roles, through technology or other things, and come into the role they're in now. And the real strength that brings us is whenever we come up against any kind of challenge, a technology challenge, a business challenge or anything else, we have real debate. People approach it differently, we disagree, but there's excellent trust in the team, so it's healthy conflict. We disagree, we chat it all through, we make a decision, we all get behind it and we move forward, and ultimately it's a better decision as a result of that. So if you walk away with anything today, please remember that diversity is not just about those protected characteristics that people talk about, but really about that cognitive diversity that you can grow within your team.
Anybody from the audience want to pick up and run with that one? Any questions, any points?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I work for QA apprenticeships, so I know that a couple of the panel members are well aware of what we do. We have a learning path set up that can take somebody through a combination of programs from school leaver into essentially a data scientist. I work, put young people in roles sort of right across the IT spectrum, so from help desk, software development, but data science is definitely the space that's least receptive, probably, the stats show, to taking on a young person as an apprentice. I was wondering why the panel thought that might be.
Oh, I've got some thoughts, but panel, who wants to go for it?
Well, I've got 2 junior data scientists in my data science team of 3, so I've got,
Are they apprentices, but?
So one started as an intern, yeah, and he's now junior data scientist, and my other was his first job from uni. So I guess they probably would be classed as that. But
are you speaking specifically about graduate apprenticeships or the modern apprenticeship scheme?
Modern and technical apprenticeships.
Yeah, so they're not on a scheme, because we don't have a scheme, but we just brought them in. They're just at that role. And actually, I think it goes back to Elizabeth's point, that their diversity of thinking and the way that they approach some of the challenges in data science. We're doing quite a lot of stuff around machine learning and AI and neural networks and all of that stuff. And they are really, really spot on. So actually our experience has been fantastic of junior data scientists.
I've maybe got a thought on the modern apprenticeships though, because I actually do think it's more challenging, particularly in data science. So I think the expectation of a data scientist is that you have a baseline level of mathematical knowledge. And I think that can come from maths or stats or computer science or physics. But I do think there's a reasonably steep learning curve to get to that baseline level to deal with things like machine learning. And often data scientists come in and they need to have knowledge of things like SQL and databases and other things. So that sometimes, and we have had good experience in our team, actually really positive experience, of people who have worked as like DBAs and then transferred into the data science team. So they maybe have like a data knowledge and then they just grow that mathematical knowledge. But I actually think it's quite a difficult thing to start from if you don't have either the data knowledge or the mathematical knowledge, because I think the learning curve is really steep. So I think it is. I think it's more challenging for modern apprenticeships. It's not to say it couldn't be done, but I could understand that why there's a slightly lower uptake.
Can I comment on that? Our challenge was manager appetite for apprenticeships. The comment was, and excuse me for my lazy language, but I'm not going to waste a headcount on an apprentice. Now, they would accept someone with 2 to 3 years experience or a graduate, so they would accept a more junior member of staff, but not an apprentice, because their perception of the route to productivity, effective productivity for them, was too long for an apprentice compared to someone they could just self-train quicker. Now, the jury's still out whether that's true or not, and as a scale-up organisation, there are differing opinions, and you need to find your allies and your supporters to actually then prove the model. And we've sort of started what we call our emerging talent program, because it's all about the succession, and especially in data science, where we know it's a skill scarce market. It's the definition of it is still evolving in the fact that one person's data science, another person's data engineer is another person's so that organisations need to get that right. But that whole point of, we know it's a challenge, we know this is going to feature in organisations, a data heavy business, we need to invest in the talent now who's going to, even though it might be a lost leader for a couple of years, it will bear fruit in the future. So I'm hoping more managers will take that up.
Just checking on time there. Are we finishing dead on 22 or can we keep rolling?
I think
keep rolling? Make a call. Yeah, we can keep rolling. Questions? More questions? Front row. Can we have a mic over there, please? Thank you very much.
Hi there, Craig Paul from CGI. I just wanted to respond to the comment about apprenticeships in technology. So we do modern apprentice schemes through CGI. Really, really positive outcomes. Some fantastic young people who've come through that scheme and progressed at a rate, when they would have normally left uni, they're actually now in project manager positions. But what we've found is and we're a very big organisation. We've got maybe 8,000-10,000 people in the UK. It's much easier to take them into a safer role to start with, and then maybe rotate them around the organisation once they're in. So we start off in a project management, junior PM, PMO, testing, and then move them into maybe consultancy or data or different roles once they're in. So that's maybe kind of one of the things as well to think about.
Well, the stats show that you are really receptive to doing that, to reskilling people into data roles and using apprenticeship programs for that. It's just, the other fields tend to take on people that are school leavers a little bit more. I was just wondering why that was. But in terms of the reskilling or getting already established members of staff on the apprenticeship program, it's great for that.
Great point, thank you. There was another question over there.
Hello. Well, basically, my question is basically, sorry, English is not my first language. It's something related to the recruitment nowadays and education, because basically I can see a gap between education and what employers ask, because as you said, we are in globalization. Every time there are more competency, a lot of inequality. It's harder to get in a tech job. And yes, there are modern apprenticeship, there are courses online, there are self-taught people, there are universities. So I don't know exactly sometimes how recruiters choose the workers, because it's very hard, because my experience is sometimes even have studied a degree in IT, they don't get you because maybe you have 3 years of experience, but later they get modern apprenticeships, or maybe they hire someone for the University of Buenos Aires, which is good in design, but they don't choose someone from Cambridge. So I don't see, there are a huge discoordination between education and what employees ask, and sometimes I get lost. There is additional thing, which is basically tech is always creating new fields and new stuff that sometimes we are not clear what employers want really.
Well, I think as the recruiter on the panel, I think I would certainly reassure that from ClearScore's point of view, a human being reads every single CV. But of course, the industry has to be better at explaining and giving feedback. It's really challenging. If you have multiple responses and applications, you can't give feedback to every single person. Where we feel slightly better about it from ourselves is the fact that if you have a physical engagement with people, like a phone call or a video call or face-to-face, then we commit to feedback then. But it's really difficult to be able to get through the volume of that in the application stage. And I do sympathise hugely with every single person that applies for a job thinking, oh my God, I'm a perfect fit, never to be heard from again. And you just think, how? I don't compute that. But we are the ones that unfortunately have the precise details of what the line manager wants, and if we can deliver a shortlist of that, then that's what we'll go with. And unfortunately, we can't give feedback to everybody.
There was another question somewhere over there. Oh, there's one here. Mike's nearest you. Go.
Thank you. Oh, I'm Chief Operating Officer, and Well, with all these changes, we were from being a company who offers services presential way and a little bit online to be totally online, and now go back online presential. And that involves implementing things very fast and creating process and creating things and changing rules on the team, because you have sales team, you have administration team, and you're a chief of operations, so you're in the middle operating everything. So I would like to ask, what will be a good advice from all of you to help to make these transitions smoother and easier? I don't know, what do you think?
I knew you were going to ask me.
That would be you.
I mean, hi, I feel your pain. I mean, it's a challenging role because you, as you say, you're in the middle and you've got everything. I mean, I think the way I approach it tends to be, I mean, you're obviously just trying to think firefighting first, aren't you? You're always thinking about the most pressing thing to deal with. People issues, I have to say, I mean, of my role, probably take up, even in a relatively small team, probably about 60-70% of my time. It just feels never ending, but it's really important. So you've just, even when I'm starting to get exasperated or I've got other things that are calling me, you know, you've always got to remember it's a person, and if you don't have people working for you that are happy, that are productive, that are delivering, you don't have an organisation. So really focusing on the people is where I do spend my time. The operational stuff, there's other people that I can pull in to help to do that. So just, I'd say just focus on the people. It does sound a bit cliched, but it is really, really, really important. Or they'll leave and you'll have nobody, and then you've got no business, and then you'll be in trouble.
Any more questions? Oh, we've got some more, yes. The young fella with the red tie, you've had your hand in the air quite a few times. Sorry, we got to you now.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
No problem. I'm Michael. I'm just with the whole graduate apprentice stuff that's been brought up in the apprenticeships. Kind of, it's not a question, it's more of just kind of express how I'm kind of coping just now. I started last month as a graduate apprentice, and to kind of back up what you said, Elizabeth, you know, like, it has been really tough, you know, kind of balancing uni and work as well. Uni's all from home 1 day a week, and work, you know, I'm lucky that I've been able to go in 1 day a week, but I feel if I didn't have that, I'd be really struggling, you know, like with the whole no communication at all. But, you know, if I didn't have, you know, the kind of support, you know, I was allowed to come here, you know, get to meet loads of people, that helps with the communication. But I just kind of wanted to back up what you were saying, just kind of express how I'm doing as a kind of graduate apprentice and show and kind of explain how my situation is to everyone else, and kind of just, yeah, back up and say how it's going and stuff, and that if some people weren't as lucky as or fortunate to have an understanding kind of boss or workplace to like get somebody in once a week or encourage you to come in once a week and meet loads of people, then they might be struggling as well, and I'm kind of, that's all I'd feel like to say.
Thank you.
You've said it very well. Round of applause for that young man, please. Well done, young fella, and best of luck to you. Last question, perhaps.
That's fine. Hello? Yes? Okay, sorry. I know that, of course, as you're saying, like, there's a lot of benefits when you are having people from different cultures, different backgrounds, and probably all the time in our offices and our projects, we are rotating, and we have to work with different people, right? Depending on the project, or because we have a new technology, whatever. And we as a manager are trying to provide like a happiness environment for our employees. But time to time, we can't believe that we are doing well, but in fact, we are not doing well. So how do you measure? Because there's a lot of measurement for our clients, but how do you measure the happiness or how well your employees are feeling with all this practice that you are using in your companies? I don't know if I explained well myself.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on that. Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier, Tim mentioned, those kind of pulse surveys and check-in on engagement, and I think they're really helpful because it gives people the opportunity to anonymously share how they're feeling, and you can really get a good sense of that. I think there's two other things that we think about within Aggreko. One of them is that we have monthly meetings with the different teams themselves, and quarterly I bring all of the team together. And we use a tool called Mentimeter that you guys might have heard of. It's free, it's really good. And actually I just do a quick pulse thing on that and just say, what do you think we're doing well? And people can submit anonymously on their phones. You put in a code and they all type things in. What are we not doing very well? Of the things we're not doing well, what one will we tackle next? And I actually just proactively ask the question. And if people say, we get stupid answers in, like we don't have any office dogs or office cats, and we get all that nonsense in, but sometimes there are things that come up about how people are feeling. And it's just quite a safe environment to do it when people might not feel comfortable to kind of speak up. I think the second thing in that, and why you'll now guess I'm a very big fan of hybrid working as opposed to fully remote, is that you can sense how people are when you see them. So you can see if you're sitting in an office, if somebody's always in past 6 p.m. or they're always in really early, you can kind of see by body language how they're doing that you entirely miss remotely. You just don't get that on Teams if someone's green or they're yellow or they're whatever away. And so I think it's just being really conscious, again, going back to that human factor, understanding who your team are, and I think just being a perceptive and involved manager, really, to keep a check on how your team are doing.
I know a friend of mine works in a business where they renamed their HR director Chief Happiness Officer, and she's got a challenging job. It was a nice touch to try and measure happiness.
I mean, just to build on Elizabeth's points, we do the same in NatWest. We use Slido, same sort of thing, to get this little pulse. There's a feedback. I think we also just really encourage people to have regular, again, like management 101, but like one-to-ones with everyone. Just ask people, how are you doing? Like, try and avoid diving straight into the operational firefighting, transactional, work, and just ask people how you get on. We quite often ask the question, like, try and sum up what's the weather like for you today? Not outside, but like internally. Just get a little sense of how someone is, how their life is. Get to know them a little bit better. Focus on the person, and then that, to Elizabeth's point, you'll sense how someone is beyond just the kind of delivery, the work.
I just call people all the time on Teams.
How you doing?
I just video everybody all the time, so they'll send me a quick message because they want to do it, and I go, well, I'm not replying to that, and I call them. And it's sort of like, oh my God, she's calling me. So people, but actually, I generally just phone for chat, how you doing, and I just go around the team pretty regularly and just pounce on people at random times. And actually, it's a really good way of just, as you say, finding out how people are, because I'm not physically with them. We do get together, and then when I do see people, it's a bit more one-to-one and it's a bit more focused. But yeah, I just don't be afraid. Don't hide behind messaging and email. Just pounce, I would say.
Okay. Now, we're nearly 13 minutes over time, so I think that's a big yay! Yeah, right. So listen, firstly, thank you all so very much. Remember at the beginning I said interactive? Thank you all. Give yourself a round of applause. Thanks for all the questions. And secondly, the amazing panel. Elizabeth, Cowan, Tim and Greig, thank you all very much. And incidentally, we plug, if you're interested in hearing more of particularly Elizabeth and Donne's thoughts, check out the MBN Solutions Boss and Data podcast, where both have been interviewed at length by me on the subject of diversity and inclusion and purpose. And I'm hoping that these two gentlemen might be interviewed soon. So listen, thank you all again so very much. Cheers, take it easy.